Muse. This isn't exactly my happy face. Hard to pull that off, isn't it? Now, I'm not upset. I'm not angry. I'm somewhat contemplative. And I'm contemplating something that has bothered me for a while. And I've always kind of held my tongue on this issue. But today, not so much. No, of course, it's not about you, Muse. There's never a problem with you. The only problem I ever have with you, Muse, is that you just give me way too many stories. On a daily basis, I'll see something that inspires a story. And sometimes it's a little much. Sometimes, I'll be taking a walk or doing whatever, and you'll hit me with 5, 6, 7 stories. And I don't have the means with which to write notes down for those stories, so I have to try to remember what you gave me. But that's not what this is about. Because I'm really actually quite thankful for that little problem. I shouldn't really call it a problem because it's not a problem. But, sometimes, every so often, it can be a problem. But here's what I want to talk about. And I'm kind of hesitant to talk about it because I don't want... Number one, I just don't want to come off as an angry old curmudgeon because I'm not angry, not old, and I'm certainly not a curmudgeon. But I have noticed, I'm going to take my serious stance here. I have noticed over the years, and this has been going back since the advent of social media. And no, I'm not going to rail against social media as much as I like to. I'm really hesitant to talk about this, Muse, because, like I said, I don't want it to come off the wrong way. But recently I have noticed I haven't really noticed. It just came to my attention on Twitter that there's a group of writers who use a certain hashtag in order to be noticed. And yes, there have always been and always will be those group of writers that post nothing on social media but buy my book. And that's just wrong. Don't do that. It looks desperate. It looks... Your book may be brilliant. It may have an incredible cover. And you may have written the single most greatest tome in the history of history. But the truth of the matter is that there was a reason why people like me didn't want to go into Radio Shack. Because every time you go into Radio Shack, the people that work there would circle like vultures, constantly ask if they could help you. What do we need? Do you need any help? Blah, blah, blah. It got really annoying after a while, and so we just stopped going into Radio Shack. And granted, there were other reasons why we stopped going into Radio Shack, but that was the primary one at the beginning. And so when you're on Twitter or Facebook and you just keep going, buy my book, people just start to tune you out because all of a sudden you start to sound like white noise. That is not what I want to talk about. So I came across another group of writers on Twitter using a particular hashtag. Not going to say which hashtag it is because that's not how I roll. But what they use this hashtag for, I think, is more of a tool to communicate to one another. But they inadvertently communicate to everyone. And the way they're using this hashtag to communicate to each other is... I just don't know how to say this without coming across wrong. They sound unprofessional. Plain and simple. It's like, one of the things that's always bothered me about the way that some writers use social media is, and I'll give you an example. A writer will post on social media a question. Questions like, I need a name for a character that is blah, blah, blah. This character is the anti-hero of my book. They always wear black, wears a pork pie hat, always smokes a stogie. I need a name for him. And they reach out to the community for them to give names. And this isn't one of those contests where, hey, name my character in my book and I'll give you a free copy when it's published. This is just writers saying, I can't think of a name. Let me tell you why you shouldn't do that. When you do that, when you post to the masses that you can't think of a name for a character, you look unprofessional. You look like you can't think of a name for a character. I mean, part of a writer's job is to be able to imagine and create. And when you post something like that that is so fundamental, I mean, write a bunch of first names on pieces of paper, write a bunch of last names on pieces of paper, put the first names in one hat, the last names in another hat, pick them. There's your name. You got to be creative. Writers are artists. We are creative by design. It's in our DNA. And if you have to reach out to the public, for the public to help you to name a character, then I have to ask, at what level does your creativity reach? Again, I feel so bad that I sound like I'm just saying that I'm not better than anybody. That's not what this is about. This is just about, I'm trying to give writers, especially new writers, advice on how to come across in the public eye as being professional and as being creative. You don't want to have to lean on the public for your creativity. It's, like I said, it's one thing to say, to do a contest, a silly contest, say, hey, name this character and I'll give you blah, blah, blah. I'll give you credit, whatever. It doesn't matter. That's different. But just saying, hey, I need help naming a character, that just looks desperate. And the same thing holds true for a lot of areas where you're asking for the public's opinion. You know, it's what might to you seem like an innocent interaction. It's very easy to be seen as you trying to get the public to do your job. It will be like an elected official asking the public. I guess that's kind of different because elected officials would want the public to help them with their. Okay, maybe like a teacher in high school, and the teacher in high school is coming up with a test for their students. And the teacher reaches out to the public and says, what questions should I have on the test for my students? Now, of course, that's a bad example because most teachers are told what they have to add on the tests. But you get the idea. You're asking the public what questions to put on a test for your students. All of a sudden, the public is going to question whether or not you know what you're doing. That was a little insect flying about between me and the camera. The last thing you want to do is to make the public think you don't know what you're doing, or make the public think that you are not as creative as you should be. You see what I'm saying? The image that you put forth on social media is lasting, and it's instant. People make their decisions on the fly incredibly quickly. And the second they see you as a writer, as an artist, as a creative person, not having the ability to create, to be creative, they're going to judge you. We get judged on everything these days. We cannot open our mouths. We cannot wake up in the morning, step our foot out of the bed without getting judged for one thing or another. So the last thing you want to do is give the public even more to judge you on. Can you imagine how much I get judged? I'm an actor, I'm a writer. I do these video podcasts with My Muse. I put myself out there in multiple ways. And I get judged. I know this. And what I'm trying to do is help writers and artists out there to avoid being judged in ways you do not want to be judged. For example, people know on all forms of social media that I use that I am very vocal about my political opinion. Although there's a school of thought out there that says artists shouldn't have a political opinion. Well, we're humans too. I'm not going to go into that debate. But I get judged on that every day, and I'm fine with that. I'm not fine, however, with being judged inappropriately for that which I create. Because that's different. So I always, with regards to my writing of all sorts, I always want to promote myself and put forth the most professional, competent image that I can. And so I don't post little questions on social media. Hey, I can't think of a plot for the story. I need a bad guy. Somebody give me a bad guy. Hey, you want to write my book? I mean, that's exaggerating. That's a complete exaggeration. But that's kind of where it goes in the minds of the public. Oh, they can't name the bad character of the book. Does that mean they can't even write it? You see what I mean? The public is very good at going from point A to point Z without anything in between to help them. So as writers, as artistic people, last thing you want to do is ask people to help you get from point A to point Z. That is your realm. You've created it. You should be able to fully realize it on your own. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't take that in the wrong space and say, on my own, does that mean I don't need an editor and a book cover designer and blah, blah, blah? Yeah, you do. Trust me, I don't care how good of a writer you are, you need an editor. You need proofreaders. You need beta readers. You need all of those things. Because you can't do it by yourself. However, during the creation process, you can and you should. Unless you're co-writing something, which is a completely different beast. But we're talking about books that you are writing yourself. You should write them yourself because it's your name on the book. I don't write books and then written by Jack Wallen with help from social media. No. I am in control of the creative process. It's mine. I create the plots. I create the characters. I name the characters. Sometimes I name the cities the story takes place in. But you see what I mean. You want to act professionally. Just all you have to do is get on social media, follow the writers that you admire, follow the A and B and C list writers that you admire. Yes, all the way down to C because, at this point in the game, it goes all the way down to Z list. But follow those top tier writers on social media and see how they behave. I don't think you will ever see Stephen King reach out to the public and say, I need a name for a character. Because he's creative enough to name his own characters. Okay, so I'm done. Done being the get off my yard old man. Taking off my curmudgeon hat. And now I'm back to just me. So, just to keep everybody informed, Dracula Theory is in the final phase of proofreading. I think that person is over halfway done. I have the blurb written. So as soon as I get the manuscript back and get all the changes made, I'll be putting it up for sale, for pre-sale. And it will go on sale officially probably the last week of September. Because I want this available for everyone to read during the month of October. So anyway, thank you everybody for listening to me, and thank you, Muse, for being so freaking awesome. I missed my cue. The way I always end this thing is saying how awesome you are, have been, will be. But anyway, let's try it again. Muse, you are awesome.